Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Nidar Gavelazi, and coming up in today's newscast. Another attempted terror attack in Judea and Samaria. Is Israel on the verge of facing another intifada? With a seemingly imminent nuclear deal, Iran now making new demands over its nuclear inspections. What does this mean for the negotiations? And a rare and prestigious collection of decorative ivory pieces discovered in the city of David. Another terror attack overnight Sunday as Palestinian terror suspects opened fire on a military post in the central West Bank, leaving 4 soldiers wounded. Kayla Eberlin with the report.
4 Israeli Defense Forces troops were likely injured by gunfire overnight on Sunday after terror suspects opened fire at their post near the village of Nabi Saleh in the West Bank. The attack initially thought to be from an IED. The soldiers received medical attention on the spot, with IDF troops scanning the area for those responsible. This incident occurred just hours after 3 other suspects opened fire on a crowded public bus Sunday, injuring 7. The IDF captured 2 of the 3 terrorists moments after the attack and have launched a massive manhunt for the 3rd. Meanwhile, the IDF announced Monday morning that it had arrested 17 wanted suspects in Judea and Samaria in an operation carried out in collaboration with the Shin Bet and the Israeli Border Police. The IDF added that forces also located and confiscated 10,000 shekels suspected to have been designated for weapons, ammunition, and terror attacks against Israelis. Reports also indicated that a Palestinian gunman was killed in an exchange of fire with the IDF. Tensions in Judea and Samaria have escalated sharply in recent weeks as the IDF seeks to crack down on terrorist activities in the area. Prime Minister Yair Lapid addressed the tensions at the start of the weekly cabinet meeting Sunday, and said that the goal was to restore calm to the area.
צה"ל והשב"כ פועלים בשבועות האחרונים ברחבי הגדה, בעיקר גזרות ג'נין ושכם, כדי למנוע פעילויות טרור בשטחי ישראל. מטרתנו היא להרגיע את השטח, לא להסלים את העימותים. אנחנו נמשיך את המדיניות שאומרת, ממקומות שמהם יוצא טרור, נכביד את ידינו, גם במובן הכלכלי-אזרחי. במקומות שבהם נשמר השקט, אנחנו נעשה מאמץ לאפשר שגרת חיים, לקדם את הכלכלה הפלסטינית.
And joining us now with more on the security situation in Judea and Samaria is CEO and founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure.
So, first of all, what can you tell us about the recent escalations in the West Bank?
What we're seeing in the West Bank is involvement of Iran, of Hamas. The strategy has changed. They are focusing their attacks more on cells in Judea and Samaria, while wanting to keep Gaza in a more stable situation so they can take care economically of the society there, and also in order to build up the capabilities. Both Hamas and Islamic Jihad have suffered heavy losses in Gaza. They are building up against their forces, and therefore they are concentrating their attacks in Judea and Samaria under Iranian umbrella. Iran has said clearly that they are going to focus on Judea and Samaria and carry out attacks from there.
Now, there are some that are calling this the beginning of another intifada. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't see it as an intifada in the sense that it's not the general public that wants to go out and demonstrate. This is terror cells, well-funded, coordinated by terror organizations. Intifada is a whole different thing. It's something that comes from large parts of the society. Having said that, I must say that the Palestinian Authority is a big part of the problem because they keep inciting the society in the schools against Israel, against Jews, and therefore the overall atmosphere that they are creating in Judea and Samaria encourages terror attacks.
Now, you mentioned the Palestinian Authority. I mean, there were recent reports that a number of Palestinian Authority members were arrested by the IDF in recent raids. I mean, what exactly is the role of the Palestinian Authority in the terrorist attacks or in the planning of the terrorist attacks? I mean, what can you tell us about this?
Well, first of all, what is happening is that many of the terrorists that already attacked Israel and were released from jail are absorbed into the Palestinian Authority apparatus. So more and more people inside the Palestinian Authority are convicted terrorists. And we see also a rising in the attacks of organizations who are PLO, like Al-Aqsa Shaheeds. And these organizations are carrying more and more attacks, as they did in Ariel City. The Palestinian Authority is not only inciting, it's also lost control of the overall situation. And I don't think that the solution is strengthening them. The IDF and the Shin Bet, they are responsible of restoring security in this region.
But I have to ask, why now? I mean, why is there an uptick in the terrorist attacks now? I mean, what brought this on?
Well, as I said, this is part of the strategy of Iran with its militias, with Hamas, with Islamic Jihad. They want to move the attacks from Gaza to Judea and Samaria. They are bringing a lot of money, of know-how, of incitement, and trying to push as many terror cells as possible to attack. Now, this is very similar to what we saw at the beginning of the year 2000, 2001, and 2002. Many of the suicide bombers at the time were funded by Hezbollah through Iran. So once again, we see deep involvement of the Iranians, who are also feeling emboldened because of the West and the way the West is surrendering to their demands, talking about the JCPOA and the nuclear talks. And this is part of Iran feeling strong enough and carrying the attacks in Judea and Samaria.
Now, I also want to talk for a moment about another issue, and that's the ease of restrictions for foreigners in the West Bank. The government, the Coordination for Government Activities in the Territories, or COGAT, which is the Israeli body responsible for the Palestinian civilian affairs, recently issued an extensive, 90-page document. It's dropped a number of restrictions. What can you tell us about this decision?
Well, I can tell you that overall COGAT is very favorable of everything that has to do with economics, of helping the Palestinians prosper. And I think that in this sense, I don't think that the policy really changed. But as Prime Minister Lapid said, in places where there will be terror attacks, Israel not only needs to foil these attacks and retaliate, but also demand a price economically, and demand that part of the economical prosperity will be dependent on areas not having terror attacks on Israel.
All right, let's hope that we'll have some calm in the coming weeks. Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much.
And moving on, today marks 50 years to the 1972 Munich Olympics massacre, in which 11 Israelis and a German police officer were brutally murdered by Palestinian terrorists. Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog and the families of the victims in Germany for the official commemoration ceremony. Aaron Porras with the report.
Monday, the 5th of September, it marks the 50th anniversary of an attack by Palestinian gunmen on the Israeli team at the 1972 Munich Olympics. Israeli President Isaac Herzog in Germany on an official state visit to strengthen Israel-German relations and to commemorate the victims of the massacre at the official state ceremony. The Israeli victims' families also agreeing to call off their boycott of the ceremony following years of efforts to get information on their loved ones' murders, as well as compensation from the German government, compensation that was only last week agreed to. Ahead of the ceremony, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier saying that Germany has finally offered historical clarification, recognition, and compensation, though he adds that he regrets that it had taken so long.
Hi everyone, it's Emmanuel Kadosh. I wanted to invite you all to subscribe to ILTV Plus, where you can find our daily news and updates about Israel. And not only that, but live feeds, entertainment, our kosher food show, and so much more. Needless to say, your subscription to ILTV Plus helps us grow and create more content while also supporting the state of Israel. Our app is available on all platforms and devices, so I'll see you guys there.